let's just look at what we have here. So like you could create a new window, find and replace. So find is like, okay, if I want to find anything that has ellipse in it, it'll highlight it. And if I click this little caret here, I can replace it with rect. You can also hit Control F for that. So if you've got like really long scripts and you can't remember where something is, Control F and it'll like highlight it for you, which is nice. I'm gonna go into view and you can change the appearance. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit to make it more readable. And actually don't want anything really in my canvas, so I'm gonna get rid of that. So we've just got this canvas that's 400 by 400 pixels with a background that's gray that we see over here. So just to keep referencing GitHub as a part of our workflow, I always have that GitHub pulled up right here. And so after starting the project and adding files to our project, you can see that over here in the changes in our GitHub desktop, we see all of those files appear. And they're all green because that means like we added them, and it'll show red if you've removed something. So GitHub is just tracking all of these changes that you're making, whether you're adding something or taking something away. So I'm going to go ahead and take the time now to publish my repository to github.com. And I'll just, you can keep the code private or for us, we'll make everything public. So uncheck that and then publish your repo. Now that it's published, you can see all these changes. You need to create like a little summary or like a title for those changes. So I'll just put file upload. And you can write a more thorough description. With bigger projects, I'll write a description too, so it helps. But then you can commit to main. And then from here, you just push origin. And just so we know what's happening, let's go and view it on GitHub. And it pops up your project here. And you can see all of your files here. And whenever we start to commit more changes, we can see them here. So you can always go back to, this is in the initial commit and file upload. So you can revert back to a different version of your project later on if you need to. And you can also send me the link to your code, your project for class, you know. Cool, so whenever it's all empty, it means it's all saved. So let's go back to our project. Check out the index.html. When working with web-based applications or projects, you are going to experience HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They all work together in a weaving collaboration. Pretty much everything that you can do in CSS and HTML, for the most part, you can do with JavaScript, but you need these other two as like building blocks for your site or your project. And this is all just coming from V5 Editor, but we could build from scratch if we wanted to. Before we mess with anything there, let's go over the fundamentals. So HTML literally stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is the most basic building blocks for the web. So hypertext refers to the links that connect web pages to one another. So HTML is a web page's structure. CSS is a web page's appearance, and JavaScript is a web page's behavior. So like the interactions that you want to create are with JavaScript. So all of that, by the way, like Copilot just guessed that I wanted to say behavior. And this is what's so wonderful about Copilot is it's pretty accurate a lot of the time. HTML uses tags, elements, attributes, and more. So a markup language is different from a programming language like JavaScript, and uses tags and elements. So tags are portrayed as like lesser than and greater than sign, and a lesser than front slash greater than sign. This is correct in that this is how you write an opening tag, and this is how you write a closing tag. So a closing tag has that front slash inside of it. And so these are more or less containers for the content that you want to apply to the page. The thing that goes in the tag is an element. So there's various types of elements that we can use to create our project. And so one element is the P element for paragraph, if you want to make a paragraph. There's elements H1 through H6. These are headers. So you can, H1 would be like the header of the page, which has like a default styling that is larger than the paragraph styling, for instance. There's a thing called div. You can do script elements and many more elements like body, HTML, head, main, and you'll see some of these elements up here in this like ready-made HTML doc. But first, let's just show off how to place these elements in the tags, and it's super simple. If you want to make a paragraph, you just put a P right there and a P behind the front slash, and then inside of these tags and elements is the content. So this is the area in which your content will go. Cool. Let's take this out. These are just notes for y'all. So yeah, this is how you would create a paragraph here. And the from top to bottom, the order of operations matter. So like say I want to like take this paragraph that I've built and put it above my canvas here. If I put the paragraph in between main above the script, it'll appear at the top. So yeah, cool. Let's go ahead and put a header. So let's just break down this one more time. We've got these tags, an open close tag. We've got an element name called P for paragraph, and we've got our content inside. All of that wrapped up into one is called an element. Cool. So I'm gonna put our little paragraph down at the bottom just so I can see it better. You can put things called attributes inside of the tag behind the element name, and attributes are just like extra info about the element that you don't want people to necessarily see. So you can discover more about attributes on MDN Web Docs, and MDN Web Docs is how I learned, what I know so far about this stuff. So if you don't want to hear me talk about it and you just want to like come here and, figure all of it out for yourself, then go for it. I am obsessed with this reference documentation. So this is sort of what an attribute would look like. So it's behind the element name here, class equals, and then editor note is inside of these quotation marks. So you can also nest elements, putting an element inside of another element. Interesting. So super duper, I want it to be bold. So we're going to do nest an element by putting an open tag and a close tag, and use the element name called strong. And then over here, you can see that super duper has been bolded. So that's called nesting elements. Let's go ahead and put this paragraph under my script, but inside of the body still. So, and one more thing that I want to talk about before we start messing with all of this a little bit more is a thing called void elements. So going back to the documentation, yeah, so void elements have just like the lesser than sign, and it closes it. So like it's all embedded in like a closing tag basically. And it doesn't have the content like the paragraph that we made. If you want to like reference images, you would use a void element that looks something like this. Let's go ahead and just like copy that. Or if you do Control I to call Copilot, create an image element for me. Cool, so I'm gonna accept that. I'm gonna just double check the work that Copilot did. And so it's got IMG, it's got SRC for source, source is equal, and inside of these quotes here, you'll just put like the path to the image. I don't have any images over here, but I'll create a folder called images and maybe a folder called videos as well. And whatever else you plan on putting in your project, you can make a folder called fonts. And so I'll drag and drop some image just to see how this works. Cool, so just like the first image that I could find in my folders. And let's go to index.html again and the path to image. So the way that we're gonna do this is I created a folder called images. So I call images and I do front slash, and Copilot auto finishes spheres.png, which is what I'm calling my image. And so you see it pops up here. So if I wanted, and then you have like this alt text. So like, yeah, you can double click this and it tells you what alt is. So this attribute defines an alternative text description for the image. So this is good for accessibility. If somebody's blind, they use alt text to know what the image is. So it's good to just have a description of the image that is sort of detailed. Imagine you can't see what you're looking at. And yeah, if you want to move that image up above your paragraph and below the canvas, you can put it there. And then we could maybe come over to ChatGPT and ask it how to resize that image. If I don't know something, I just quickly ask the chat. And it says you just need to put width and probably just the amount of pixels, height amount of pixels, and that's what I'll do. Equals, open, close, quotation marks. So this is another example of an attribute. So we can do like 100. So now we know how to import an image. We know how to create a paragraph if we want. Now let's talk briefly about the anatomy of this whole doc. Line 1, we start with exclamation point, doc type, HTML. So you need doc type to render the page correctly. HTML language equal EN is just determining the language used. So in our case, or in my case, it's English. You've got a head, a body, a main, and an HTML. The HTML wraps around, it's like goes underneath this doc type, and it wraps around the entire container or whatever you want to call it. Make sure you have the HTML closing tag. All of the stuff that you want to put in your project, but you don't necessarily want it to be like visible on screen, happens in this head right here. Here we're calling different scripts. So we're able to import like the P5 library with this URL. P5 also has like the sound library already embedded. So if you're like messing with audio or anything, you need the sound library. And then this link here is referring to the style sheet, so the CSS. So over here, style.css, in order for this to work with your HTML document, you need to have the link to it here. So that's what that is. And then this meta charset UTF-8, this is setting the character set for your language, and just know that you also probably need it. All of these are like building blocks to creating our project, and they're not visible, but they are required. So underneath the head, we could put a title element and a title closing tag. And inside of that, we'll put our content. So the title for me is just going to be like test page. You can see that this appears up at this the browser tab. So whenever you like go into this hamburger menu and you open it in browser, whatever you put in that title, it's going to show up like right here. So our content's really tiny because nothing is scalable right now, but that's fine. Go into our body next. So all the content that you wish to show, text, images, video, games, audio, whatever, is gonna show up here. And so that's why you can see our canvas is showing up, our image is showing up, and our paragraph is showing up. Next, let's go ahead and put a heading for whatever project we're working on above the sketch. And like I said before, headings are H1 through H6. So it starts like with a big heading and it just gets smaller and smaller. And you can sort of think of headings like you would a book. So there's like a title of the book, a chapter title, and then subtitles. And so there's only H1 through H6, so 6 total, but you may or may not use them all. So we'll do H1, and hopefully Copilot auto finishes it, and it did. Let's put it in the main so it'll show up at the top. Next up, let's just create like a second. Let's create a H2. I exist. So you can see header 2 is like slightly smaller than header 1, but still bold. So that's cool. Okay, so maybe you want to remember that header 1 through header 6 is a thing, and you want to add a comment. Normally we would do like the 2 front slashes for a comment, but in HTML it looks a little bit different. You have to do a lesser than and an exclamation mark, 2 dashes, and you see it turn green, and it doesn't show up over here, so you know that that's a comment, and you close it with dash dash greater than, so like an arrow. So this is how you would write yourself memos. Cool, so we've made some progress here, and every time you feel like you've made a little bit of progress, you're just gonna go into that GitHub desktop and see the changes here. We've taken out some stuff and we've put stuff in, and you're just gonna put a little summary title. So commit that to main and push origin. And now all of that work is saved. That version is saved. Go back to project, and this is the workflow, okay? We are very close to being done here. We're just gonna talk about lists and links real quick. There are 2 types of lists. One is the unordered list, and the other one is the ordered list. So the unordered list is like a shopping list where it doesn't matter the order of operations, and an ordered list is like a recipe where you have to do like step 1, step 2, step 3 in sequence. You describe first what kind of list you want to make. So mine will be an unordered list. and it auto-populated the next step, which is to create your list tags for each item. And so like the content would be boom. Oh, and whenever it auto-populates, I'm just pressing tab to like if it does the right thing, I just press tab. So cool, let's see what it looks like. Yeah, so it's created like a bulleted list for me. This is really, really poorly designed so far, but it's fine. Let's just put a link like underneath my image here. So the way that you do that is by using the element name A, and A just stands for anchor. And after the A in this opening tag, put HREF, which stands for hypertext reference. So A is anchor, HREF is hypertext reference, and this is an attribute. All attributes are written the same exact way. It's got that attribute name, that equal sign, and that open close parentheses. So inside of the open close parentheses, we're going to put the URL that we want to link to. Let's just do google.com for right now. And don't forget to put https:// and it made everything a link because we have to then go in and like close it so that everything is not a link. Get rid of that. And then, so we've got this open tag, close tag, and an attribute with the link where we want it to go. And then the content inside of it is going to be whatever we want the title of our link. So a Google link is what I want it to be called. And boom, like you see our Google link here. So I'm just going to move that underneath the paragraph. Boom, Google link. Let's see if it works. Took us to our local site. Pretty cool. So yeah, you can link other pages or whatever in that way. Just for funsies and interaction purposes, I'm going to come over to my Sketch.js. For our background, I'm going to take this background, Control X, put it up in the setup function, and I talk all about this in my other videos, so I'm not going to go over this again. For the height, maybe it's like 400 pixels, but maybe like the width, we'll do window.inner width, so it like spans the screen. So like no matter how big you get, it'll be the width of the screen, but it's always going to be 400 pixels. And then for some interaction, let's just do a circle. Circle function, mouse X, mouse Y, and 50, or if you want to make it scalable, width times 0.01. I'll save. And if we come over here, we can see that we can now like draw on our site. In this video, talked about HTML, title, headers, and subheaders, how to import images using HTML, paragraphs, lists, and links, and then incorporating our P5 sketch and JavaScript to create some interaction. So you like build a whole website this way, probably. And I'm actually trying to do that right now. There are better tools, but I'm just having fun with it and getting creative. And that's the whole point of my channel, is just to use these skills in creative ways. So make your own like cute little web page and make it creative, make it interesting. And I will see you in the next video where we'll talk a little bit about CSS.